your first question about the request for the opinion is, I'm a member of the Virgin Islands Bar, and I always tell people that despite the fact that I'm a member
I want you to repeat that. Are you a member of the Virgin Islands Bar?
I've been a member of the bar since 1991.
Oh, okay.
And although I am, I don't have myself as my own counsel.
No, okay.
The legislature has 7 attorneys.
7?
Yes, 7 attorneys.
That's more than I have ever experienced when I was there.
Well, we have, and support staff, and legal research resources, and other resources.
Okay.
And so whenever I have a question, I believe that I should utilize the learned counsel of the legislature, because that office is at this time headed by a person who has been at this much longer than I have been.
Okay.
And I give much respect to the legal counsel of the legislature.
And the legal counsel talking about is Yvonne Thorpe?
Yvonne Thorpe, we have attorney Charlene Rogers, we have attorney Lisa Moorhead, and several others, attorney Ayala, Lockhart Muller, and Cintron.
So you're not wanting for legal counsel?
No, we're not.
Okay.
So my inquiry was really initiated by the fact that I had this feeling that the legislature needed to be more involved in the process of the outcome of this election and what it would mean for this district. And I didn't want to go just on my own intuition or my own instinct, because I hadn't done the research to support what I was thinking. So I said to myself, I should, before this gets away from me, go to legal counsel and request an opinion. And it would just so happen, serendipity. I always remember the day that this occurred, because this was the day that Mrs. Simmons was being buried, Miss Viola Simmons. It was January 4th. And I was debating, because her family means a lot to me, and I wanted to spend some time with them. And so I went to the bank to get that done as soon as the bank opened, so that my day would be free to spend with the family. And I ran into one of the legal counsels for the legislature, and I said, I need to request an opinion on this Rodriguez issue. And he said to me, well, actually, it was requested already, and we just finished working on it. And as you know, the few days after that, we had the swearing in, we had activities on St. John, we had activities on St. Croix, and I kept wondering, because normally when you have a legislative or legal counsel's opinion on just about any issue, it's circulated. Now, whether you requested it or not, it's in the interest of all 15 of the members to know what the legal counsel has stated on any particular matter. And so I waited, and then eventually I said, well, wait a minute, I have never seen this thing come out. And so I wrote a letter to the council. Well, I made a phone call first, and then the response to the phone call was a little funny. I won't go into that right this minute. But I said, let me just write a letter. I like to have things in writing. Let me just write a letter requesting it. And within a day, I got the legal counsel's opinion.
So you didn't get a copy of the legal opinion until you wrote?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
And so once I got it and read it, I was like, well, my hunch is thoroughly researched by the council, and this makes a lot of sense to me. And why I attached to it was because of what the various courts had indicated as well. And they all kind of indicated that there had been no action by the legislature. And the core of my belief was that once the certification of the election was made by the Board of Election, and there was a contest, that the legislature should have stepped in, that the legislature should have convened a process and made a determination about the candidacy or the eligibility of Senator-elect Rodriguez.
Well, I'm sure, Senator, that there are people out there who are interested to know what this opinion says. I read it. And so let me ask you, before you get into the meat of the matter, if you could read the conclusion of her opinion, and then you could go back to the meat of, so that people could understand what she has concluded.
And I'm glad that you asked that, because one of the challenges when you take a position publicly is that you're not always able to communicate with people in detail exactly every piece of your thinking. And so there were times when people heard me making this statement and they misinterpreted my position as being in support of a candidate. They thought I was saying Rodriguez should be seated. Later on, they thought this was an issue about a senator-elect Sorrow, because now we have 2 senators elect. And I was like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm simply saying that the legislature needed to be involved in this process.
And this is what this opinion is saying.
Exactly.
It's not saying that Sorrow should or Kevin should or what have you. It addresses the legislature's action or non-action.
Exactly.
So could you read the conclusion to us first, then you could go back to
Which part are you at?
in
conclusion.
In conclusion, yeah.
In conclusion, the legislature is the sole judge of the elections and qualifications of its members, and that includes members-elect. Revised Organic Act, Section 6, Subsection G, see Barry versus United States, ex rel. Cunningham, 279 U.S. 597 to 614, 1929. However, the legislature may consider only those qualifications enumerated in Section 6B of the Revised Organic Act. The legislature's unlawful waiver of its authority as the sole judge of the elections and qualifications of its members, and its continuing to allow courts that lack authority to decide post-election contests, could result in and could produce anomalous results. For instance, the upcoming special election to fill the vacancy in the legislature could result in another post-election contest. When the Sorrow versus Fox case was remanded from the Supreme Court to the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands, the case was then removed to the District Court without further action by the Superior Court. Consequently, Kevin Rodriguez could conceivably run in the special election.
Now, let me ask you this question. Am I reading it and understanding it the way you do? When the legal counsel is saying that the only authority that the courts have is prior to the election, anything having to deal after the election, post-election, that is the legislature's authority.
You're correct. And as a matter of fact, what is just as interesting is what the district court said when it dismissed both actions from Sorrow and from Rodriguez. And the court essentially reflected on Rodriguez as asking the court to order the legislature to seat him as a senator. And this is what the court says. As the legislature, and this is a quote from the court's opinion on page 57 of its memorandum opinion, as the legislature has taken no action to consider whether Rodriguez is entitled to membership, his claim is both procedurally novel and legally wanting. At its core, he seeks to have this court command action on the part of a co-equal and coordinate branch of government, the legislature, to seat him. That action is exclusively within the province and discretion of that branch. The court cannot cross that line. And so essentially the district court is affirming that the legislature could have acted to address this matter at some point.
So Senator, why was this seem as if it was concealed from the public?
Well, I should say to you that one of the things I wanted to say first, for those people who are not aware of it, is that the Third Circuit will meet today. In fact, they should have convened, I think, at 11 on the island of St. Croix, and they're going to be hearing Mr. Rodriguez's appeal of the district court dismissal. And one of the issues that he raises is whether the action of the Senate president and I guess with the blessing of the majority caucus, whether that constitutes an action of the body of the legislature. So I can't, the question of why this opinion wasn't shared at first with the council, with the rest of the body, the question of whether the legislature hasn't acted, of why the legislature hasn't acted, those will have to be addressed by the president. I will say this. I'm glad for the opportunity to speak about the matter, because whenever the president in particular has responded, because I've done maybe about 2 releases on this, and when Senator Jackson has responded, he's responded to it as if this is my personal opinion. And so when you do that, then it's just a question of he differs from what I'm saying, or I didn't say this, or I didn't say that. But he has never said, this is the opinion of the legal counsel of the legislature, and this is the reason why we have decided that we're not going to follow this particular advice. What is important to also underscore is that as a body, we have never met to discuss this. We have never met informally, we've never met formally. As a matter of fact, at the session, one of the recent sessions, I think it is the one where we discussed the special election. It could be that, or it could be the syntax session. The members of the legislature's minority prepared a resolution with the assistance of legal counsel that would have asked the legislature to convene a process where we would have voted on this issue, and it would have been clear what the legislature's position was. What happened in that session is the majority voted to limit the session to only the items on the agenda. And so the resolution was never brought forward. But I would be happy to share a copy of that with you as well, so that you see that we had actively tried to have this matter resolved.
So you're saying to the public here that the minority tried to bring this matter to the legislative body so you could hear the pros and the cons, and at the end of the day, the legislature could have voted up or down?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what you're saying, clearly. Yeah, okay. Well, you know, has there been any other court besides here in the Virgin Islands that may have addressed any situation where the legislature is concerned with respect to their authority?
Well, when you go through the opinion, one of the good parts about this matter is that there has been extensive research on the part of the law clerks who work for the courts, etc. This, for instance, is the memorandum of the District Court of the Virgin Islands, and that is already 59 pages. You have the Supreme Court opinion, you have the legislature's legal counsel's opinion, you have the briefs that the parties have prepared, and now going forward at the Third Circuit Court level. And so they're very rich in terms of looking at what really will be a precedent here in the Virgin Islands. And there are cases that they have looked at. One of them is the case involving Adam Clayton Powell, the case involving Julian Bond. And in both cases, they had sought to be barred from state legislatures. But in each of those instances, there was a vote by the body to either exclude or take other action against them.
Let me ask you this. Have you seen any opinion, any legal opinion, averse to this one that Attorney Yvonne Thorpe wrote?
Well, I think the opinion is one thing, but if you read the opinions of both the District Court and the Supreme Court, nothing in any of those opinions suggests that the legislature could not have acted. And I think that's what the undergirding of this thing is, that although you may look at this as an opinion, yes, we are senators and the public elects us to make decisions. So we are not bound to follow what the legal counsel says. It happens a lot.
Yes.
We'll have a permit,
Yes.
we'll be discussing a permit, and the legal counsel says you shouldn't approve it because A or B or C, and people vote to approve it. That happens.
But as you read this opinion, though, it falls in line with the Organic Act, and it seems to be well researched. You know, I had problems with Yvonne Thorpe at the time when I was at the legislature, but I have to admit she has always been well researched, and she has quite a lot of depth. She takes time to write her opinions, And so while the legislature does not have to rely on the opinion from legal counsel, as senators they could say, we don't need to follow this, we follow something else. Has there been anything that you've seen that would thwart what legal counsel even perhaps has written?
Well, what the legislature did was the legislature hired additional legal counsel to pursue this matter in court. And the legal counsel raised several issues that I think are valid and important issues. But I don't believe that there is anything that has been produced that precluded the legislature, that would support the legislature's not acting in this instance.
Let's take a call. We have, I think, 3 calls on here. On there, pass it on.
Yes, good morning.
Morning, morning.
Yes, I'm listening to your program, and I'm very glad to hear one of the senators come out with this issue, because the community, even before the special election, we've been talking about the legislature having the authority to make a decision on this event, okay, because we need to really have some closure on it.
Yes.
And again, I want to commend Senator Roach and others who may be listening. I just want this to come to an end, okay? And I also commend you for your program that you have on the air.
Thank you. Thank you much.
Thank you.